This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Number 3, we're going to talk a little football right now, but we're going to talk a little football. Not that InterMiami was playing football last night. That was kind of ugly last night. My man Franco Panizo was there. There weren't a lot of people in the stands either also, as the boys fell 5-1. Franco, they've been outscored 9-1 in the last 2 games. Is the run over? Was that an aberration, what went on for a couple of weeks with the boys?
Well, I mean, the run's over just by obviously the last 2 results. They're now on a losing streak. But look, during the good run of form that they had, there was a lot of good things done. Defensively, they were a lot more solid. They became tougher to break down and to beat. That allowed them to be more competitive because they were in games for longer periods and they were able to find ways to win. However, the performances, at least on the attacking side and with the ball, weren't all that great by and large in much of those matches. And some of them they pulled out very late. Others, they got opportunistic finishes. It wasn't like they were playing this great quality brand of soccer. They were just finding ways to win. That's, there's merit in that. That's obviously a positive. You can find ways to win even when you're not playing your best. But, it wasn't a sustainable formula for success. Now, obviously, going from winning games 1-0 to getting blown out again 4-0, 5-1, that's obviously there's a pretty big difference there. So they have to get back to at least that defensive solidity to have a chance to not only start winning games again, but obviously make the push for the playoffs that they're looking for. Yeah,
but you also got to play smart too, because some of their defenders also do some dumb things too. And Gregory yesterday, that was you didn't need to do that, dude. I mean, the game's out of hand already at this point. Why do you want to commit the penalty? And now, you're now you lose them for another game. And it's just, that's one thing that I will say, and especially with Gonzalo's Pires, that dude, while he has his moments as a defender, he makes a lot of just mental and frustrating errors. And he's one guy that I'm not a big fan of, to be honest with you. And Figal kind of disappointed me the other day too, with that penalty also. And that's not normal for him, not like it is for LGP, that he seems to commit the dumb penalty all the time. And Gregory, as a captain, last night, that was also disappointing considering where that game was at.
So what I would say is, look, it's been a frustrating season in general, by and large. And, those players are tasked with, right? Their duties, their responsibilities are to defend and help break things up. Now, obviously, you're not looking to earn yellow cards, but it's part of defending. It's part of breaking things up. There's attackers that create and defenders that destroy. And part of destroying at times is getting cards. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of cards for at least, Leandro Gonzalez Pires and Gregory.
There's enough cards that they actually should be over at the Hard Rock dealing. Okay, that's how many cards those guys have. They have enough to stack 5 decks inside.
I think they have 21 between them, if I'm not mistaken. So they can play some blackjack.
They have more than enough for the shoot in blackjack. I'm telling you, they picked up enough.
I like that. But look, I mean, yes, could they cut down on some? Absolutely. Especially, the last one Leandro Gonzalez Pires got in the Friday night game against the New York Red Bulls. He gets one for just yelling at an opponent that had fallen on the ground, just a sign of frustration. Rushes of blood to the head happen on the field. However, he's a more experienced player, more veteran player, and he should know better than that. It was unnecessary, and obviously they missed him like they missed Figal in this one. But I mean, from front to back, it wasn't good overall for InterMiami. We'll see. I mean, Gonzalo Higuain showed signs, but besides that, there weren't that many good performances, I thought.
Yeah, no, and listen, with Gonzalo, unless you have great midfield play, you're never going to get the max out of Gonzalo. I'm sorry. He's not dynamic enough. He's not the kind of athlete you need that he can dribble through a bunch of guys and set himself up. That's not who he is, unfortunately. He's going to need some help. But one of the guys that was there to help him supposedly, and you really needed him last night was Pizarro. Your thoughts on his play last night?
So he had his moments, like sparks, but not enough. Not enough for your number 10. Not enough for your one of your more creative players. I think it's been an extension of his season by and large. Like he did combine obviously really well with Gonzalo Higuain, not only on the goal, which was a nice 1-2 pass in a central area that Higuain finishes well, but Pizarro also hit that pass over the top. It looked like he was passing to Julian Carranza, but Gonzalo Higuain made a run in, and Higuain took the ball. He said it's mine, and then he shot the ball and hit the post there in the first half. So he was involved in some of the more dangerous opportunities for InterMiami. Pizarro was, but again, just not enough. You have to sustain those performance levels for longer periods, not only individually but as a team. And Pizarro, most of the squad did not do enough of that, and has not done enough of that this season. Look, and I've said this to a few colleagues, and I'll say it here. I think this is not information. This is just my opinion. What I see from the outside. I think Pizarro initially, he was the guy, right? When we met in Tampa and he scored in that friendly, and then the season started, he was the guy. He was the guy that everybody turned to. He was the lead figure on the team. During the season, he's still at the beginning few games, he still, had a decent level to him. He was scoring some goals, making some things happen. Even continued a little bit after that, after the MLS's back tournament. You remember he scored the goal, and then he posted with the cardboard cutout when there was no fans in attendance.
Right.
So I think even before Higuain, though, his form started to drop a little bit. But then once Gonzalo Higuain came, and Gonzalo Higuain now became the lead figure because he's Gonzalo Higuain. He's played Argentina's national team, the biggest clubs in Europe. Once Gonzalo Higuain became, I don't want to say the alpha male, but once he became the lead figure, el referente, as we would say in Spanish, I think that kind of made Pizarro not feel like he could fully express himself and play like he wants. And I think that's part of why we haven't really seen them combine as much as we want, or as much as anybody wants. If you look at the stats, last night's goal was the second time this season they have directly combined for a goal in 2021. The last one was the Pizarro goal against Toronto FC, I believe it was, in August. So they've only combined directly for a goal twice. They've helped other people set goals up, et cetera, et cetera. But between themselves, it doesn't seem like the chemistry and the understanding is there, which is not a good thing, because you usually want your striker and one of your more creative midfielders finding one another, like they did last night on a couple of occasions. So
yeah, I mean, you would figure that he would actually be happy about this, because unless he has the attitude that he wanted to be also the goal scorer of the team, then if there's a little bit of ego because of that, then that's his problem. But he really could benefit in multiple ways by using Higuain and becoming a better setup guy, because he also could get himself out of here if he plays better. And that's also, if you want to out of a place, sometimes maybe the best thing to do is play your best, because that could open up the door for you. But if you don't play well, then you're not sexy to anybody else, and then you're having problems with your own team at the same time. And that's kind of, it's been one of those things. It's been really frustrating with Pizarro. It's just something that we're never satisfied with what we see from him, because it's always like you just talked about. There's little flashes here and there. So there are little teasing moments, but there aren't enough of those convincing moments, in other words.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Excuse me. I would agree with that. I think, he doesn't transmit on the field that much of a confident player anymore. Like before, in the beginning, I don't know what your opinion is, Big O, from watching him play in those first 5 games of the MLS season and in that one match in preseason. But I felt right. It just looked like he was transmitting something different on the field. Just looked like a more confident player. Now I feel he's kind of hides a little bit. He kind of hides a little bit. Like he looks for the ball.
Dude, he's submissive. He was a bull. He was aggressive early on. He took on the challenge, and he played with this hunger. And then now you see him, and it's kind of, he's passive. He's just allowing people to, take over and then he's not being enough a part of it and all that. It's a different attitude that I've seen from that guy from that first couple of months to where he's at now. Night and day.
Yeah. And again, I think it has to do with Higuain and Higuain's presence and Higuain just being the guy. Look, there's been at times this season. I just did a piece last week on Miami Total Football. You can see it there in the game against. I'm blanking on which game it was now, but in one of the most recent games,
Toronto, right?
It wasn't Toronto because Higuain wasn't on the field. It might have been the Columbus game.
Okay.
No, it was either it might have been the Columbus game. It's either the Columbus game or the Bulls game, but I think it was the Columbus game. Anyway, in that game, they both take up similar positions often. They both kind of it looks like almost like they're marking each other. Like one plays for the other team, the other one plays for InterMiami because they're so close together. The spacing between them, they like to take up similar spots, and obviously, when you're taking up similar spots, only one of you can get the ball, so they kind of cancel each other out in that way. And like you said, I think with Gonzalo Higuain's presence and who he is and how he is, I think maybe that's kind of made Pizarro a little bit more introverted and passive on the field and being like, all right, well, let's defer to him. He's the guy. There's different dynamics that go at play, but again, this is just my sensation from the outside, my opinion for why I think one of the reasons why I think it hasn't really clicked between the two of them. I don't know if there's any problems behind the scenes. I don't think so. I haven't heard anything of that. Just think that maybe their field and their understanding between one another is just not the best.
All right, follow him on Twitter, Franco Panizo. More importantly, you got to listen to Miami Total Football. He does a great job of covering this team and giving you every angle. So listen to the podcast. Great listen at Miami Total Football. Franco, two things before I let you go. One, what's also disappointing as an Inter fan is watching Nashville and how well they've put their team together, how organized they are, how well coached they are, how well balanced they are also. It just seems like they have done everything right. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily about grabbing headlines. It's about the game itself and putting together the team that they need. Whereas, with Miami, we've had more of the hype and more of the other stuff that goes with it and more of the fluff. And this team doesn't have the kind of chemistry and doesn't play with the same kind of fluidity on the pitch, whether it's offense or defense. You know what I mean? What is it in your eyes about Nashville? Why it seems like they've done everything right and Miami has not?
So I do want to think. I think we should add. I think we haven't touched on it. The InterMiami last night was missing. We did touch on it a little bit, but InterMiami was missing two key center backs. So they had a patchwork defense because their reserve center backs, their substitute center backs, are both out with injury. So PhilNice had to get a little creative there.
But I had this feeling last year too, and I know the USL stuff that transferred over with the coach and the philosophy and all of that, but man, they just look like they're so well put. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So what I was going to say is, last night InterMiami looked very disjointed, very sloppy. Spacing between players was off. Spacing between lines was off, especially after they gave up the 6-minute goal. I asked Jay Chapman after the game what the game plan was. I imagine it was to be as defensively solid as you can be, so as to not give up so many spaces. Because if you give up spaces, Nashville has talented players that can punish you. They're known for being a more defensive side, but this year they've shown more things in the attack with the ball. So Chapman said that their game plan was to try to close down the middle. Obviously to make it tough on the opponent, but that went out the window pretty much after 6 minutes, because after 6 minutes now you're down 1-0. Now you have to start chasing the game a little bit. And look, Nashville in comparison is a well-oiled machine. Maybe not the sexiest team at times.
Right.
Obviously they don't have the biggest names in Major League Soccer, but they're cohesive.
They embrace their identity. That's what I love.
Absolutely.
They know who they are and they play to who they are. And they play well. That's what I like about them.
Absolutely. They're a well-oiled machine. They're a very cohesive team. You saw it yesterday. Even in moments when InterMiami had sparks in the attack and it looked like, okay, well, look, here's a dangerous opportunity coming right here. they would take a shot, a player would take a shot, and then somehow, some way, a Nashville player would flick the ball out for a corner kick or block the shot. Like, they just never give up, almost never surrender, and they just don't give up on any play or any ball. They compete for every single one. InterMiami has not really shown that over these last 2 games. That's why they've lost by a combined score of 9-1. It hasn't been pretty. And InterMiami's had some really poor losses at home this year. 4-1 against 5-1 against Nashville SC, 4-0 against the New York Red Bulls, 5-0 against the New England Revolution earlier in the year, 3-0 against DC United. There's been some pretty bad performances at home. I think that deserves a deeper analysis, why they struggle more so at home than maybe away, or why they've been beaten in such lopsided fashion at home. I think maybe. And again, I think it deserves a deeper analysis, but I think maybe the fact that you're at home and there's more of an onus to try to take the game to the opponent and look for the 3 points because you're in front of your crowd. And I think maybe that might be playing into it. But look, at the end of the day, this team is, and we've known this since the beginning of the season, the good run of form maybe papered over the cracks a little bit. This team is not a great team. There's a lot of weaknesses, a lot of shortcomings, and a lot of deficiencies. Now, every team has shortcomings, weaknesses, and deficiencies, but InterMiami has a lot of them, including they're not a very physical team. They're not very physically gifted. They're not very, they're not that big. They're not that fast. Who's the fastest player in the starting lineup on a regular basis? Maybe Lewis Morgan, maybe Robbie Robinson, one of the two. But besides that, there's not a whole lot of speed there. There's not a whole lot of players with a lot of range. So, they're very limited in being able to find ways to win games. They still haven't scored off a corner kick this season, and only once off of a free kick. And we're almost in we're in the last 9 games of the season now. So very limited team with a lot of shortcomings, and they're starting to manifest themselves again, starting to pop back up again, because obviously the defense could only hold up for so long, especially with how you were playing. So it's a tough situation for InterMiami. No, they still have an opportunity. It's still there for them within reach, but they've got to get back to that foundation of being defensively solid, something Phil Neville said last night.
All right, we'll wrap it up with this. Franco Panizo joining us, talking a little InterMiami football. Last night they lost 5-1 to Nashville. Not that I have any insight, but from afar, it looks like Moss and Beckham had to buy out 2 frustrated owners. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's hard to imagine that the ownership group would quit this early in the process if they weren't unhappy with something going on. What did you hear? What happened, and why were they forced to buy out the 2 owners?
Well, from what I've read and little things I've heard here and there, is that there's been differences between Jorge Mas and Marcelo Claure. Now, that's just what I've heard. So, and it's what's been reported. They just had differences. Marcelo Claure also was the person that pointed to MLS, that signaled to MLS that InterMiami had broken the roster rules in 2020. So, maybe they just didn't see eye to eye. Now, and look, maybe this is good, maybe not, I don't know, but maybe it's a good comparison with Gonzalo Higuain and Rodolfo Pizarro, because initially it was David Beckham and Marcelo Claure that were seen side by side in the initial years of that Miami idea back to MLS, the Miami project. And, they helped make it happen once Jorge Mas came on board, but Jorge Mas had to come on board for it to get across the finish line. And then when Jorge Mas came on board, he's obviously the money man, and sure, maybe that made Claude have to take a step back, similar to Pizarro, and then it just never maybe clicked from there. Claude is a more soccer savvy person because he's been in the business. He has a team in Bolivia, right? So he just naturally has more experience running a team and understanding the game maybe a little bit more. But obviously, if you're not the money man, if you're not calling the shots, then you have to take a seat back. So maybe something like that along those lines happened. They had differences of how to approach things and how to do things. And I mean, at the end of the day, if then on top of that, with the MLS situation, the Matuidi Gate situation, with Claudia being the whistleblower or the one that that came up front and said, hey, this is what's going on. Maybe that was just the last straw between that relationship, and they obviously then from there bought him and Masayoshi Son's stakes, because obviously it's not a sustainable or a good relationship for the ownership group. And now it's just the Mosses and David Beckham. And I think that they are looking for minority owners, if I'm not mistaken. I think they are looking for other people to invest a little bit, but it's all in the Moss brothers and Beckham's vision now. See what they do going forward. Obviously, it hasn't been a great start. It's going to be challenging over the next 2 years as well, given the sanctions that they have because of Matuidi Gate, as I like to call it. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes for Inter Miami. There's challenges ahead, not only beyond the season, but obviously in this season as well for the team to make the playoffs.
Let's hope so. It's not like Marcelo Claudia didn't have an opportunity to do everything himself. He's got enough money, but he chose not to. And so if Moss takes over and he's the money man, he gets to make the calls, man. Let's just hope he can put it together and be. And I know he wants to win badly.
Absolutely.
I know I've been around Jorge enough to know that he wants to win badly. And sadly, they made a lot of bad decisions early on, and that has set them back. Follow him on Twitter at Franco Panizo. Check out the podcast at Miami Total Football. Let's hope the boys improve. My brother, appreciate you as always. Have a great weekend, and I'm sure we'll catch up down the line, talk a little soccer.
All right, brother. Thanks for having me on again.
You got it. There you go. The great Franco Panizo. Follow him.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.